Right, let's get straight into the leading story. A security guard has died on a wine farm in Paarl in the Boland after a tree uprooted due to gale-force winds that fell on his vehicle. Now, parts of the Western Cape are experiencing rainfall and disruptive winds, which have resulted in damage to formal and informal dwellings. Numerous communities in Cape Town have also been left without electricity as a result of the damaged overhead cables.
Roof sheeting has been ripped off homes and commercial properties, prompting the closure of the Somerset Mall in Somerset West. 28 incidents of roof damage have been reported since yesterday in areas including Delft, Mitchells Plain and Blue Downs.
It's not raining, it's winter now. So yesterday morning after 3 o'clock, there's coming too much. So they made the house, they're gone.
The wind started at night. It was yesterday night when the wind started. So, and the sharks break down. Everything was a mess. So the people need structures to put their heads.
Yesterday around 2:30, the wind started to blow many shacks away and the people struggled to sleep. Some asked the church for places to sleep. We need help, we need material, we must build. Our children need a place to live.
Localized flooding on roadways have been reported. Numerous areas around the metro have been affected by electricity outages after trees were blown onto power lines.
We've got more than 30 power outages across the city. At the moment, the wind is still very strong and our city cannot use the crane trucks to get to the lines, the cables, overhead cables, unless the wind is calm enough and safe enough for them to do so. So we really do ask people for patience, that the city teams will address those power outages as soon as they possibly can.
Aid organisation The Gift of the Givers says it's been inundated with calls for help from across the province.
The main concern is safety is number one. Thereafter, the humanitarian needs in terms of blankets, hot meals, hygiene items, which we will be providing. And then, of course, once the weather subsides, they would need some building material to rebuild their homes. But we could see the extent of damages is huge. And with, as you correctly said, the rain is not coming down 100% yet, but there is rain predicted for later on in terms of 100 mils of rain predicted. So it will be intensifying over the next 24 hours.
Assessments of storm damage and mopping up operations are ongoing. Vanessa Puna, SABC News, Cape Town.
Right, let's bring in some reaction on from the City of Cape Town's impact of the adverse weather conditions. We're joined by the City of Cape Town's MMC for Safety and Security, JP Smith. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time, JP. The inclement weather has wreaked havoc across the city. Let's perhaps start off with an update on the latest developments on the ground this evening as you and I speak, more so after learning of a loss of life.
Absolutely. Our disaster management teams have been working with all the different departments over this day. During today, we had very few additional incidents. Mainly, we were dealing with mopping up from the damages of yesterday afternoon, and last night we had extremely heavy rainfall, well beyond the normal winter rainfall levels. We had a storm like this in September last year as well. So these extreme weather conditions truly put our services to the test. And we had howling winds of 60 to 80 kilometers an hour at some places due to the localized topography that was even more severe. And that led to the kind of damage you see in these clips with structures. Myself and the mayor were on site during the day visiting different areas to see what our disaster teams were doing. Our informal settlements management officials were engaging with people to see where starter kits were possible. Various relief agencies, including Gift of the Givers and Mustadafin and others, were assisting with relief. We had done a call for donations already on Sunday with various companies and corporates coming forward with donations. And Checker 6060 making a donation option available on the app. So we were able to start doing some relief materials today, and thanks also to Peninsula Beverages and the Grand West Hotel and Grand West Casino and others who contributed. And then our teams were busy, as the mayor also alluded, with the electricity outages. by this afternoon. Early this afternoon, 10 of those 30 outages have been corrected. They are working currently on 20 that are still open and that they're attending to. Many of those will be fixed during the night, especially if the wind gives us a bit of a break. And the pumping out of localized flooding, blasting of drains, and otherwise has allowed most of those roads, all of the roads, to be opened except where there was significant debris or danger issues, such as with Chapman's Peak and the road in Fishhoek. But beyond that, all the other roads were cleared of debris and reopened. Our community services and health had a vast amount of incidents they had to deal with in terms of debris on the roads with fallen trees and otherwise. And I think that has also stretched them to capacity. So in total, about 2,779 structures that were affected where we were giving assistance today.
With that extent of infrastructural damage, we also understand that some structures in Nomzamo have been affected and people, of course, being displaced. Where are they being housed this evening? And also perhaps talk a little bit about the areas which have been hardest hit as you try and bring some sort of normalcy.
Generally, those were in the far southeast of the city, those closest to the Overberg and Cape Winelands. That's where the wind was most severe. Most of this damage is wind damage. The electrical outages were caused by trees falling on lines and parts of structures or other debris becoming windblown, especially sheeting of informal structures that became airborne and tangled with wires or cut electrical cables. So that's given the electricity department most of their work. And in terms of the areas affected, Nomzamo probably has the largest number of structures. Sanda Village in Bolila, a informal settlement, had quite a number. And these range from a single structure slightly damaged to quite a large number of structures, up to 720 in the one area. And as I said, around 2,779 structures, ranging from very slight damage to completely torn down by the wind. With relief options, we generally are trying to encourage people to find refuge with friends and family. That's the least disruptive. And we called on activated community organizations, churches, other faith-based organizations to assist people with some shelter overnight. The challenge being with opening community halls is that very often the next day when those community halls, when people need to leave, they will decline to do so, and that community hall is then lost in perpetuity to community access, which creates a great deal of anger. And this unfortunately relates to how the courts interpret the PI Act, which creates additional challenges for us there. But where we were this afternoon, people were either rebuilding or had by and large found accommodation with others.
We also understand that some schools, as a result of this weather, had to be closed. Is that something that will continue up until tomorrow? What are the conversations around schools?
So the Premier, Alan Winde, has been having disaster briefings for our staff. We participated in one early this morning, and during that, various assessments were done between the city and the province and other municipalities surrounding us, activation of mutual aid agreements between us. And in that regard, the Premier then closed the schools on the eastern side of the city and the Helderberg side, Somerset West and surrounds, where the weather was extremely severe. Wind speeds became very intense, and schools within the Cape Winelands and Overberg. The rest of the city was not affected in that regard, although I think learners had it, in some cases, had a challenging time of getting to and from school today.
And you touched briefly on, what happens when people are housed in churches and all of those serious challenges. What assistance will be given to those who may have lost identity documents and serious paperwork? Are you working with other departments to assist them at this stage, or is it still too soon as the inclement weather continues?
So before the extreme weather occurred over the weekend, even as far back as last week on Thursday, we started meeting with all the different agencies and putting our preventative measures in place. We pre-activated some units like the dive units and the rapid water rescue units that within our fire and emergency rescue services. We then started convening over the weekend already our disaster coordinating team. To start doing that, we alerted residents at the end of last week about the oncoming severe weather and did as much communications and community awareness around that, circulating the graphics and various disaster coordinating information in infographics and otherwise through social media, through neighborhood watches and otherwise, so that people could prepare and be ready and knew who to contact for what. And then over the weekend, we activated the Disaster Operations Center with all the different departments, including SASA, DSD, Urban Waste Management, Water, Electricity, the NSPCA, Human Settlements, and the different provincial departments. And wherever the need arises, we will be requesting the Department of Home Affairs for assistance in the reissuing of identity documents, especially because people will want to exercise their right to vote on the 29th of May.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Let's perhaps leave it there for now. JP Smith, the City of Cape Town's MMC for Safety and Security, they're giving us an update on the latest in the developing story when it comes to the weather conditions in the Western Cape.